Amado Carrillo Fuentes, also known as the Lord of the Skies, is one of the most prolific Mexican drug lords to ever have lived. And through his illegal deals and drug trade, he amassed a massive fortune of around $25 billion. So let's take a deep dive into this pile of coke video about how he chose to spend his ill-gotten gains. Amado Carrillo Fuentes was born in the Mexican state of Sinaloa on December 17th of 1956. He was reared in a household with 11 siblings, with links to the Guadalajara cartel through his uncle, who was the organization's commander at one point in time. Fuentes was lured into the cartel at an early age by his uncle Ernesto Don Neto Fonseca Carrillo, who very quickly promoted him to a high-ranking officer. Fuentes eventually enlisted the help of his siblings and his children to join the cartel. Amado Fuentes was asked to handle cocaine shipment activities in Chihuahua while Don Neto was still the head of the cartel. He learned a lot from other professional drug traffickers like Pablo the Ojinaga Fox Acosta Virriel and Rafael Aguiar Guayardo during this period. Later, Amado's father and one of his brothers died under mysterious circumstances. Rafael Aguiar Guayardo was one of the bosses of the Juarez cartel at one point, and Fuentes worked for him. In 1993, Fuentes assassinated Guayardo, his old boss, and then he took control of the entire Juarez cartel. As numerous personalities in the cartel underworld vied for supremacy, what followed has been dubbed the city's worst and most continuous episode of criminal bloodshed. Amado Carrillo Fuentes then cemented his position and began to construct a multi-billion-dollar drug empire with the Juarez cartel at the helm. Fuentes revolutionized the drug trade, relying on privately owned airspaces to transfer narcotics across borders, and he invested extensively in advanced surveillance technologies to spy on his rivals. Amado Carrillo Fuentes got the alias El Señor de los Cielos during this period, also known as the Lord of the Skies. Fuentes eventually amassed a sizable private jet fleet, including over 30 Boeing 727s costing $6.5 million each. In order to afford these high-priced jets, Fuentes set up a large money laundering enterprise in Colombia. He also began collaborating with some of the most powerful figures in the Latin American drug trade, including Pablo Escobar, El Chapo, the Tijuana cartel, and the Beltran Leyva cartel. Like all good drug lords, Amado wasn't one to shy away from spending on luxury homes and villas. He built a mansion called the Palace of 1001 Nights, which was worth around $5 million. It was modeled after palaces in the Middle Eastern stories, and now it sits abandoned, waiting for demolition by the Mexican government. The gaudy, oversized home had outdoor grottos, tacky zebra print, and red velvet decor, and also a bar completed with disco balls, and was fortified by huge walls surrounding every inch of it. Unfortunately for Amado, he could never truly occupy the property, as it was seized mid-construction, and then he died a couple of years later. What do drug kingpins and rappers both have in common? They love gold and they love guns. Well, what could be better than having both of these things together? Amado's firearms were typically gold-plated and adorned with diamonds and other stones that would spell out his initials, AFC. Despite the high life and attempting to surround himself with all the trappings of wealth he could, he kept one childhood memento that was discovered in a mansion after his death. It's a sketch of the rural landscape he grew up in, that he had done as a boy and framed on his bedroom wall of his $20 million mansion. Amado's $5 million a year payments worked effectively, and he even bribed Mexico's top anti-drug official to turn a blind eye to all the heroin and cocaine flowing in and out of the nation following Amado's death. He would leave many drug enforcement agency dead bodies in his path, not necessarily because they were attempting to track him down, but because if he hired an official and they turned sour on him, that person would be tortured and shocked right away. After his death, Amado Carrillo Fuentes was laid to rest in an elaborate 490,000 two-story mausoleum complete with 24-hour air conditioning, security, a 50-person chapel, and a 2-person burial chamber. To this day, his family and close friends gather there for special events like religious ceremonies and weddings, and that too was worth nearly $500,000. And it just had a color of royalty to it. After all, the man was narco royalty back in the day. In 1995, he purchased a small, struggling Mexican bank to help him launder the billions of dollars he was making from illegal drug industries. It's pretty difficult to say how successful he was with it because authorities were alerted immediately and began investigating the bank the following year. So if he had pulled it off, this would have been the most remarkable money laundering scheme the world has ever seen. Imagine being so rich that you just buy a bank so you can keep your illegal money in it. Now that is what I call a good investment. In the months leading up to his death, Amado had complete freedom to run his drug operation from Mexico and come and go as he liked. However, Mexican anti-drug agents increased their pressure on him and his gang. They apprehended not only Gutierrez, but also his supposed top bodyguard. Carrillo had narrowly avoided jail only a month before when a Mexican official stormed his sister's wedding at the family ranch. Carrillo evidently received information about the planned raid from a corrupt law enforcement officer and left just before the military and police arrived. He tried to make a deal with the government to allow him to run his cartel in peace while he would pump his gains from the drug trade into the Mexican economy. But no such deal was made possible. Carrillo began planning to move his drug business from northern Mexico to Chile last spring, where he, his family, and top lieutenants spent 3 months establishing a business bulkhead and buying cars and real estate. Amado arrived in Chile on March 3rd by automobile from Argentina, using a forged passport in the name of Juan Antonio Arriaga Rangel. His wife, Sonia Barragan Perez, and their 3 tiny children, his 20-year-old son by another woman, Vicente Carrillo Leyva, and his 3 pals, who law enforcement officials say were cartel officers, were among those who accompanied or joined him. Amado and his associates reportedly solicited the help of local money exchange with 2 bank accounts at the Citibank in New York to launder narcotic revenues and furnish them with cash in Santiago. The accounts, worth about $26 million in total, have been blocked by the U.S. government, which has launched a lawsuit to recover their assets. Amado and his gang acquired 11 cars, over a dozen houses, ranches, and apartments, and founded a corporation, Hercules Ltd., to conduct his drug activities during his 3-month stay, according to Chilean law enforcement officials. In what Chile's Interior Secretary termed a clear instance of money laundering, he and his cronies invested around $6 million into the country. Carrillo left Chile on June 6 and flew to Cuba, where he lived for almost 3 weeks in a residential enclave intended for official visitors, using his bogus passport. Travel records suggest Carrillo visited Cuba frequently in the previous 3 years, maybe to see his second family, a lady called Marta and their 2-year-old daughter, according to Mexican law enforcement officials. He may have gotten preferential treatment from Cuban authorities because he looked to be a wealthy Mexican businessman prepared to invest there, according to U.S. sources. Amado was in shambles, overweight and reputedly strung out in his own personal stockpile, sliced from tens of thousands of kilograms as guys continue to carry north, and he seems to have chosen a drastic solution. He would have plastic surgery to change his look. And so, on July 3rd of 1997, he checked into the hospital in a posh district of Mexico City under a fictitious identity, and the Lord of the Skies succumbed to a deadly dosage of anesthetic and sedatives in a well-guarded operating room. When the authorities were made aware of the situation, they scrambled to get Amado's body, but before they could intercept it, they were both made aware that the coffin had already been dispatched to his mother's ranch in Sinaloa. However, Attorney General's office had a team of agents waiting for them when they arrived, and they took the coffin and flew it back to Mexico City straight away. The authorities had to physically separate Amado's mother from the casket, and that she plainly believed housed her son's remains. At that time, the authorities rushed to make sure that the body that they held actually belonged to the notorious drug lord. But the corpse had already started to degrade, and getting fingerprints was already becoming increasingly difficult. At that time, Villalobos realized that he could confirm his real identity. The U.S. had Amado's fingerprints, which were obtained by Border Patrol agents in Presidio, Texas in 1985, and later discovered from the Immigration and Naturalization Services files. He called this former intelligence agency in El Paso and requested that they send him a set of prints to the Mexico City overnight. While a Mexican technician attempted to extract a set from the corpse, which had long since become rigid from rigor mortis, the quality of available prints degrades as the body decomposes after death, but Villalobos was positive after comparing the prints on file with those obtained from the corpse. So, it was confirmed that the Lord of the Skies had finally met his end. After the confirmation, the body was returned to Amado's family, where he was buried in Sinaloa. It is said that hundreds of people came to pay their respects, and flower decorations worth thousands were sent to his family from people all over Mexico. This included government officials, law enforcement agents, cartel leaders, and the common man. Some of these were literally 7 feet tall. Although Amado is dead, the myth that he somehow made it out of the clinic and is living life as somebody else kinda still continues on today. So, what do you think? Is this man still really alive today? Is he kicking it with Tupac? I mean, surely he has the resources to continue living a life on the run. Maybe he doesn't live in the same level of luxury that he was used to, but still, he had enough money to live the rest of his life comfortably. So if you enjoyed this video, watch that one.